Hey everyone, I'm Stephanie, host and head bookologist here at the Get Literate podcast. I'm a book loving, notebook hoarding reader and writer on a mission to change lives one book and one notebook at a time. On this podcast, we explore the power of bookology. What's that? That's the study of books and reading and notebooks and writing mixed with mindful practices and creativity to create lives we love. Here, you'll find episodes exploring the reading and writing life and how they can make our actual lives better. You'll get book recommendations and notebooking prompts around particular themes, and you'll even hear from authors and special guests who can fuel our reading and writing hearts and help us take inspired action in our own daily practices. So, grab a notebook and your TBR list, and let's get literate. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Get Literate podcast. I'm Stephanie, your friendly bookologist, here with another episode on how reading and writing can make life better. Today, we are diving into a topic that I think is really cool and really interesting. And I want to start a little bit with the backstory on how and why this particular topic came to be important to me and came to be the focus for this episode today. Lately, over the summer, I have been doing more work both in person and online to spread this idea of restorative reading. Summer reading is the perfect time to settle into a more comfortable, a longer, a more feel good kind of reading routine. By the way, fall and winter and spring is also good for that kind of work. But in particular, this summer, I find myself doing more workshops, more restorative reading sessions, even just 1 hour connection calls with people and organizations that are interested in learning more about how reading, especially restorative reading, can support their wellness in a number of ways. Now, in these sessions, I always start with the why, right? We are here to talk about reading. And I want to start off by talking about the researched benefits of engaging in reading. And you've heard me talk about them on the podcast before. We know that there are physical benefits of engaging in reading. Our heart rate slows, our breathing relaxes, our muscles relax, all sorts of cognitive benefits like active brain synapses and better memory and vocabulary. And we know that it helps support happiness, happier moods and emotions, and actually lessens depression as well. We know all of those benefits. And I always ask people to think about the number one benefit they need right now that reading can help them with. That's the first layer of benefits. And I like to look at this in 3 layers now. Layer one are the benefits that come simply by engaging in any kind of reading: newspaper, comic books, high literary novels, nonfiction, professional text, whatever it is. The act of reading, of calming yourself down a bit and moving your eyes left to right over and over and over and over and over again, puts you into that calmer parasympathetic nervous state. So that's layer one. Now, layer two, if we want to build on that foundation, we can read certain books to help us feel certain ways in relation to what we want to get out of our actual life. And we can layer those benefits that are specific to us, our personalities, our goals, our wishes, our needs, our wants, our life challenges. We can read books that help us with those things, multiplying those benefits. So we get the impact on our sympathetic, parasympathetic nervous system. And then we read books that are actually designed for us to help us think about our life differently. So that the third layer of benefits is that we might actually act differently in our real life. Those books can be sparks. They can spark us to try something new, to reconnect in a relationship, to change the way we head about our day and our routines, to connect with other readers around those books. And then those connections grow and grow and grow. And we know that research says when people get to the end of their life, the number one predictor of happiness was the strength and the meaningfulness of their relationships. So if you look at this in the three layers, first, the benefits simply by reading. Second, the life benefits that come with reading books that are right for us. And third, the benefits that come when we reach out to others and we change our lives in ways that matter because of those books that we've read. I know, it's fascinating. Now, in my sessions that I've been leading lately, everyone can always get behind those physical benefits. They're excited, their eyes light up, they start planning when they're going to read more, and they're going to try to get to that 30-minute mark that we know is so important in that restorative reading practice. But when I get to that second level, and I talk about reading certain books that are particularly chosen for you and how you want to feel and who you want to be and what you want to do, there's usually a few questions about that. Right? Well, wait, why? Why does that work? Why would reading books based on my goals really help me? Right? Why would reading books where a character is going through a similar situation, like how, according to the research, would that help me? Right? We can kind of wrap our brains around how it would feel, but they wanted a little bit more. They wanted that concrete research that I provided in level one to help them understand why it was so important in level two and then ultimately level three. And so I've been taking deeper dives into the research, which you know I love to do. I love a good rabbit hole. And I've been developing and changing and adding to these 1 hour workshops that I've been doing over time so that people really understand the power that a single book can have. And what I have found is that those benefits that come in that second layer when we read books that are perfect for us because of who we want to be and how we want to feel and what we want to do, it all comes down to two words. Can you think of what they might be? Mirror neurons. Now, I've mentioned mirror neurons in the podcast before. If you are in any of my courses, I've talked about them before. Mirror neurons are fascinating. Not only are they fascinating, though, they are critical to a reading life that actually supports your actual life. And that's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about what mirror neurons are, why they are so important in a restorative reading practice that actually makes life feel better when you close the book, and how it can help you move forward in whatever direction you want to go. So, first, let's talk about mirror neurons. What are they? Well, mirror neurons are those neurons in our brain that fire when we are witnessing something happen to someone else. So maybe you have witnessed a wonderful, beautiful event, right? A wedding, a proposal, birth of a new baby, someone showing an act of kindness to a stranger. When you see that happen, you might not be the person doing the doing, but you likely are a person feeling the feeling, right? You get those feelings of happiness, of joy, of gratitude, of, oh, that's so nice. Oh, I'm so happy for them. And when you feel those feelings because of what you witnessed in someone else, the same regions in your brain are firing that are firing in theirs. Now, certainly not at the level of intensity as if it was happening to you personally, but they are there. There is activity, and you do feel that secondhand emotion when you witness something. Now, that also works if we're witnessing something negative, right? Have you ever seen something happen to another person? Did you witness an accident? Did you see someone get bullied? Did you watch a movie that was just far too negative for your liking? You likely felt those emotions too. You felt sorry. You felt disappointment. You felt sadness. Maybe you even felt anger. That's because those areas of your brain are firing as it is in the person who's experiencing the thing. That fascinates me. That fascinates me. And it is important on so many levels because if we can have brain activity in our brains because of what we witness, then we can be strategic about what we surround ourselves with, right? You've heard me say in the podcast, Jim Rohn says you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, right? What if you were the average of the 5 books you just read, the 5 movies you last watched, right? What we surround ourselves with matters because, in part, of these mirror neurons. Now, these mirror neurons can fire when we're watching things happen to others in person. They can fire when we are watching them in media or in a movie. And research shows that they fire when we are reading as well, because we are immersing ourselves in a story. We may not be watching it on TV, but we are literally creating it in our mind and in our day. And so those mirror neurons are very present when we are reading books. Now, usually I talk about this benefit in relation to empathy because books are empathy building machines, right? We can read into a situation, a location, an identity, a way of being that we cannot in real life. And by putting ourselves into someone else's shoes and their mind and their heart through a book, we can gain better perspective. We can be more empathetic, and then we can act differently in the way we show up in the world. So, mirror neurons are so important to building empathy in a variety of ways, but especially in a reading life. But the same kind of concepts can apply to us in terms of using personal development and transformation to use books to spark changes that we want to see in our life, right? If we are strategic about what books we're surrounding ourselves with, then we can fire areas of our brain that we might not be able to fire in our real, actual life. Because we know that in order to change, and you can insert whatever you want to change in your life here, in order to change, we have to believe that we can. We have to believe that that kind of change, that kind of transformation, that way of being, that it is possible for us. We really have to feel that. Because if we don't believe it's possible, if we don't feel into that possibility for ourselves, then we're probably not going to act in ways that are going to bring that personal development transformation to us. So, to get something we want in our life, we have to believe it's possible and we have to feel it first so that everything around us lines up and we can take the kind of action that we want to take. But man, that is hard. If you are in a frustrated, angry, or depressed place, it is hard to just say, okay, let me just feel happy. Let me just feel like everything's going to work out. Let me just feel like I'll be fine after losing my job. Let me be fine with having a change in relationship and knowing that I have to start over. Right? Let me just be fine with this diagnosis. It'll be fine. It'll work out. This has a reason for happening. Right? As much as we'd like to do that, it is really, really hard. But if we harness the power of these mirror neurons, we can surround ourselves with books and therefore people, experiences, locations, and ideas that might not be physically around us, but can still fire new areas of our brain to help us grow into the version we want to be. That's why my be, feel, do framework is so important to me and to this work in restorative reading. We have to know who we want to be, how we want to feel, and what we want to do in this season and in this moment. And then, if we are very conscious about the 5 books that we surround ourselves with, we can actually fire certain mirror neurons that we want to fire so that we feel the way we want to feel that is so hard for us to feel in real life. But by getting lost in that story, getting lost in the narrative, getting lost in the pages, we're firing those aspects of our brain easier. And once they're fired, then it is easier to make a transition forward. Why? Well, if you listen to my last podcast about writing your way to a higher vibration, We know whether you believe in the wooiness of the law of attraction or not, I think all of us can understand that we get more of what we feel. If we wake up in a crappy mood, we stay in a crappy mood, typically. If we wake up happy and expecting good things to happen, often good things will happen. Now, not all the time. I know things happen, but I do know that what you think often snowballs, right? Even if we don't believe in the law of attraction, what we think can snowball, and what we think determines what we do. And so if we feel bad, we tend not to take a lot of good action in our life. We just sit and scroll and think and are tired. But if we're happy and energetic and looking forward to something, then we might reach out to that new person or take that different way home from work or go to that new store, new cafe, new bakery that you wanted to go to. And so those feelings inside help you take more action. It's not that magically the universe just brings you whatever you think. It's that your thinking helps you act in a certain way so that you can get what you're trying to put out there. So mirror neurons can kickstart, literally kickstart our growth and do whoever and however and whatever we want to be. And books can be the catalyst. And I'm assuming that you're understanding at this point, based on what I've said, that I don't just mean nonfiction personal development, right? That yes, that can kickstart something. But I'm really talking about fiction books here. Fiction books with a storyline so that we can wrap ourselves into that story. We can connect or disconnect with that story. And because of those mirror neurons, whatever's going on with that character is kind of going on a little bit with us. So choosing your books is so essential. Yes, you can read the newest book just because you want to. Yes, you can read that mystery and not all of a sudden go down a rabbit hole of a feeling that that mystery is going to happen to you, right? But we can be more intentional about harnessing the power of our mirror neurons in our brain so that our reading life can make our actual life much better. Now, how do you do that? Well, first, you have to read, right? We know those research-based benefits start with just 6 minutes of reading. But we also know that to get to really full effect on our parasympathetic nervous system, we need to read restoratively, which means we need to read for at least 30 minutes at a time. If you do that, your body is flooded with all of those benefits: physical, cognitive, emotional. You'll have different chemicals floating around in your body because you have gotten into that meditative state because of the movement of your eyes for at least 30 minutes. So that's the first thing. We need to find 30-minute blocks of time in order to really benefit from this practice. But then we have to be careful about our book choice. It's not just picking a book that you happen to see that had a cool cover at the library that your friend recommended because she liked it. You need to choose books that are going to help you be the average of 5 of them. So you need to think, who do you want to be? How do you want to feel? What do you want to do in this particular season of life and this particular season of the calendar and whatever you happen to be going through? And choose books from there. Choose books that will help you connect with people who are going through those things, embracing those identities, feeling those feelings, doing whatever they want to do. Doing that will help you fire those pieces of your brain that are so hard to fire and then move forward. Now, I love creating book apothecaries for people. And so if you need help selecting books, just reach me, contact me, leave a message on my show notes, send a DM on social media. Now, I also love sending postcards with one book that I think is perfect for every reader. So you could go to alitlife.com, click on Free Literate Love, scroll down a bit and click on I want a free book postcard. And I will send you a personalized recommendation after you just give me a teeny tiny bit about your reading life in your life. And I will pop it into the actual physical snail mail and you can get a fun gift. So first, you've got to choose books that are going to help you fire the mirror neurons that you want to fire. And then step 2, you need to be open You need to be present while reading. That's why we need 30 minutes of you diving into that book, and you need to pay attention. How are you feeling in this book? What are those nudges that you're starting to get? What quotes are jumping out at you? Now, some books do this more often than others. So if this doesn't happen a lot in a particular book, it doesn't mean you failed. It just means maybe it's not the book that is going to be the catalyst for you. Maybe you need a different book. Maybe you need to change gears a bit. But then other books, oh, we get a ton of them. Now, regardless of what they are or how many they are, I want you to take that one nudge or those two quotes and I want you to write them down. I want you to write them down in a piece of paper or in a notebook because we know if we write things down by hand, you really listen to that sound of the pencil scratching across the paper, it literally cements it into our brain. And so if we're firing our mirror neurons and we're cementing things into our brain by writing them in our notebook, we're doubling the chance that we can move in the direction we want to go in. And how do you do that a little bit faster? Feel. Really be present in the experience. Feel what those characters are feeling. Take note of how you're feeling in your physical body and in your emotional mind. And just let yourself be immersed in the experience. That will bring those mirror neurons to you faster. It'll bring them with more intensity, which means you can feel that way faster and with more intensity, which means you might take different action in your actual life. It also means that if a book is not working for you, you can abandon it. You should abandon it, right? Because you don't want mirror neurons firing that you don't want firing. And I know so many of us have issues with abandoning books. Doesn't feel right. We feel bad. We don't want to. Don't. Please don't. And I hope this gives you a whole nother way of looking at abandoning books. There's so many books out there. You don't have to abandon a book and then tell the world and the author that you abandon it for these reasons. You can just close the book, move it aside, and pick a better one. And I hope this shows you that you should. Because if you're not feeling the way you want to feel in a book, that's literally impacting your brain and kind of the vibe you're putting out there for the action you might take. So get rid of it, move it aside, give it to the next reader, and find one that works for you. If you know that books have this power, I guarantee you, you're going to look at your reading life just a little bit differently. I hope you're already thinking about your reading life a little bit differently, knowing that these mirror neurons are at work, whether we like it or not. So if we can be intentional about what and how we're firing them, we can be our own life coach, people. We can help ourselves in so many ways. So I want to leave you with a couple of titles that you might add to your book stack because of what you want to fire in your mind. Now, the first book I want to share is called Wine People by Michelle Wilden. Now, no, I'm not having you read this book to fire, wine tasting mirror neurons in your brain. Although if that's what you want to do, go for it. That would be a fun experience to add to a bucket list. But I love this book because these two women who felt stuck, who felt underappreciated in their current job, they left and they started their own company. And then one of them left that company and started her own thing. It is a book of transformation and repeated transformation, of taking big risks and relying on yourself to understand and believe what you want and then go get it. So if you need that kind of energy in your life, it's okay to leave a job. It's okay to start over. It's okay to start over again after that. This is a book that's worth picking up. Now, book number 2 is Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zauner. This was popular a couple of years ago, and I loved this book for the complexity of the mother-daughter relationship that was inside. So if you're a person who either wants to explore or who wants to deepen, who wants to understand your relationships with others in your lives, not just mothers, but others. This is a book I think that could give you perspective in the roles of other people and the inadvertent role you might be taking yourself and how those relationships can play out over time. Now, book number 3 is My What If Year by Alicia Fernandez Miranda. What if you just quit your job and you engaged in internships for a little while? Just see and remember what it was you loved. Now, I know not all of us can quit our jobs and just hop around the world and go to these wonderful internships, but we could take an afternoon and shadow a bakery because we've always wanted to have one. We could take a Saturday morning and sit in the corner of a bookstore and just take it all in and imagine what it would be like to own one, right? We could volunteer at our local theater production because we always wished that was a path that we took. There are ways to spark those mirror neurons in ways that'll work for your life, even if it's different from the book. So, my what if year could be a good possibility for a lot of us. And then finally, I do want to share Broken in All the Best Ways by Jenny Lawson. If you are someone who is struggling with anxiety or depression or some sort of diagnosis that's just holding you down, this is a book that can help you feel seen and help you quite possibly see a way out. So there are books that can help you, again, be the person you want to be, feel the way you want to feel, and do the things you want to do. You just need to be a bit more intentional in finding them. And so here's your reminder. This is what I love to do. I love to find the perfect book for people. So I am here to help. If you need a book recommendation because you know these mirror neurons are firing, even if you don't pay attention to them and you want to do better, find our show notes online at alitlife.com and leave me a question or a note or a request in the comments, and I'll respond there. You can comment on the social media post for this episode on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook or whatever your favorite platform is, and I could respond there. You could send me a DM on any of those platforms. You can head into my Get Literate Facebook group and start a post and a thread so that not only could I recommend books that could get your mirror neurons firing, but others in the community could as well. And you know, I love the audio messenger inside the podcast platforms too. So whatever you're doing right now, stop for 30 seconds, hit that audio button, and send me a request. I will happily send a book recommendation, whether it's through email, whether it's through a more formal book apothecary, when I could recommend a whole stack of books to you, or I could send you one of my favorite book snail mail postcards in the mail. Remember, I'm on a mission to send 365 postcards in a row to everyone around the world to share this book love and to share this idea that what we read truly matters. And then so many wonderful connections and inspired pieces of action can come from it. So I hope this has given you a whole other layer of things to think about in your reading life and how important it is to our health and our wellness and our well-being and our emotional status and all of the things that we want to bring into our life we can do starting with a book. So thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Get Literate podcast, everyone. Please send me your comments and your questions. I love leaning into this research. I will continue to lean into this research and bringing it to you. And so let me know what you want more of. Thanks again, everyone, and I'll see you inside the next episode. Thanks for listening to today's episode of the Get Literate podcast. You'll find links to all the books, resources, and ideas mentioned in the show notes and at alitlife.com. And if you want more, you might like to join my Patreon community. There, you'll find additional inspiration for your reading and writing life, like bonus podcast episodes, book calendars, monthly book clubs, notebooking inspiration, live events, giveaways, and more. It's only $5 a month, and you get instant access to all of the previous content too. Learn more at getliterate.co. And one more thing, if you love what you listened to today, please take a moment to rate and review the podcast or take a screenshot of the episode and text it to a friend. This helps the podcast grow and it builds our bookish and notebookish community too. Thanks for listening.